All right, so a couple years ago, the number one show, or one of the big hit shows on Netflix, was a show called Love by Judd Apatow. I just posted a picture of him meeting my dad. My mom and dad came out to visit for a few days to Los Angeles, and my dad was really excited. He wanted to see all the cool Los Angeles locations from this show that he had watched and he really liked. So when we're on the street downtown, and who should appear out of nowhere but Judd Apatow, the most powerful man in comedy. And he's the executive producer of this show, Love. So he comes walking down the street, and I said, "Dad, Judd Apatow." And I point like this, and Judd Apatow's like, kind of like he's being like, someone's like calling his name. And my dad said, he thought I was just talking about the show Love. And he said, "Oh, yeah, right." I said, No, Dad, Judd Apatow. And I walked backwards so Judd didn't feel like I was crowding him. And my dad said, "Oh," and then he walked over like they're old buddies, and he started chatting with him and talking about his show and talking about his daughter, who's a star of the show. And they were just having this great old conversation. And we took that picture that I just posted on Facebook yesterday. And the interesting thing about it was my dad was the one who wrapped up the conversation. He said, "Well, all right, well, great to see you." And he walked away. And Judd Apatow was just like, "Sure." And then he just went wherever he had been going. Now, I've told people stories about being a Christian and having these miraculous meetings. And what they say to me is, like, they're like, "That's cool, Dan, but I meet famous people once in a while too." And I say, right. Sure you do. But it's a little different when you're living in the miraculous. For example, I prayed every day that I could surf with Slater. And then 2 months later, I just happened to be in Hawaii, and I just happened to visit the most famous wave in the world called Pipeline. And it just happened to be that there was only one person in the water, and that person was Slater, the greatest surfer of all time. So I went in the water, and he paddled by me, and I said, "What's up, my man?" And he said, "Hey." And one of the most interesting things was there was no one else in the water except for me and Slater. There's only two people in the water who love surfing, and that's me and the greatest surfer in the history of the world, Slater. As far as the eye can see to the left, you can see no one. There's no one there. As far as you can see in the water to the right, off in the distance, you see people like little dots. So one of the weird things about me praying to surf with Slater and it happening 2 months later was it was just me and him, and it was the most famous wave in the whole world. So it's unusual that it's just us two guys at the most famous, popular wave in the whole world. And even though let's say my dad comes to Los Angeles and we see someone famous walking down the street. Well, I'm sure you've met some famous people in your life, or I'm sure you've seen some people walking down the street. But the unusual thing was, it was like Judd Apatow had nothing to do but just come over and chat with my dad. And there weren't a lot of people around, and there weren't any distractions. It was as if Judd's job that day was just to come up and have a little friendly chat with my dad. And then the weird thing was, my dad was the one who ended it. And he said, "All right, well, I'll see you later." So when the miraculous is on your life and you have miracles following you, not only do you meet famous people you want to meet, but there's also a special quality to it, whereas it's being like served up to you on a silver platter. In other words, it's not like we just saw him walking down the street in a crowd of people. Judd Apatow just came right up to us. We were stationary, and he walked towards us. He talked to my dad as long as my dad wanted, and then my dad said, "All right, I'll see you later." So if you want to have the miraculous on your life, you follow Jesus and you read the Bible, and you make that the very center of your day, where you want to make doing something the Bible says the purpose of your day.